Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. The forum tonight will be hosted in English with Spanish, Haitian Creole, and American Sign Language interpretation available. If you would like to enable interpretation, you can go to the bottom of your screen and press the globe icon to choose the language you desire. This will now be translated in Spanish and in Haitian Creole.
Buenas noches, recuerden que este foro lo vamos a tener en español, en criol haitiano y en inglés. Entonces, si ustedes desean escuchar el foro en español, recuerden que pueden hacer clic en el globo de interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y elija español. Por favor, recuerde silenciar el audio original. Si está conectado en Zoom desde su teléfono, toque los tres puntos en la esquina inferior derecha donde dice más, elija interpretación de idiomas, elija en este caso español y a continuación toque hecho. De nuevo, por favor, silencie el audio original. Gracias.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Et donc, il faut comme ça fait en anglais, mais nous avons une interprétation disponible en créole haïtien avec en espagnol. Nous demandons autant pris, sous ta remettande en créole haïtien, regardez sur le globe terrestre là, sur computer ou, en bas à droite, ou cliquer sur lui, ou choisir créole haïtien, là ouais, et globe terrestre qui dit interprétation. Donc, soit attendez même, ou participer sur téléphone intelligent, regardez en bas à droite, ou trois petits points qui dit more, ça veut dire plus, ou cliquer là-dedans, et puis ça va avoir option pour interprétation. Ou choisir créole haïtien. Ensuite, aussitôt qu'on finit, on cliquer en l'air à droite, côté qui dit donne, en façon pour arrêter dans le canal là. Nous disons déjà merci et bonne participation. Thank you. Over.
I need a PSA at 94, PSA at 94, please.
Good evening, Miami. I want to thank everyone for tuning into this conversation tonight. From the people in the live audience, please go and do some reactions if you're here with us live in the chat. And everyone watching this on our website, welcome. My name is Faith Grant, and I'm the Collective Impact Officer at the Miami Foundation. And at our foundation, we envision a greater Miami where everyone thrives. And so having great elected leaders is a big part of that. Throughout the month of July, we've hosted forums to help you get to know the candidates who want to leave this place we call home. So I want to thank everyone who's tuned in each week. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. Just in case you want to learn more about our forums in the past or just general election resources, please take a look at our website at votemiami.org. They'll have so much information for you, and you'll learn more about the candidates. That's why we're here. So tonight, we are excited to focus on the tax collector, the Miami-Dade County tax collector. And so if you're familiar, the tax collector is responsible for the collection and administration of various local taxes. We're talking about our property taxes, which are critical for funding public services such as schools and infrastructure and public safety. So the person that we elect in this position plays a key role in ensuring the financial stability of our community and the effective delivery of public services. So if you didn't realize how important your vote is, I hope you're starting to realize that. You know, these forums that we've been hosting cannot be possible without deep, deep partnerships. And so I want to take a moment before I pass the mic to our moderator to give special thanks to our community partners. I want to thank AARP Florida, the IAT Community Trust, Catalyst Miami, the Clio Institute, the Disabilities Independence Group, Engage Miami, Radical Partners. I want to see some reactions. We got to give a shout out to our partners here. Transit Alliance, the League of Women Voters, and the United Way. Thank you, and thank you. And lastly, I want to remind our viewers that tonight's conversations, it's a debate. It's not a debate. I'm sorry. It's a forum. Like, this is a conversation. This is a community conversation, right? We want to hear from our candidates. We want to hear their ideas. We want to uplift their leadership. And so these are not about any parties. This is not about conflict. This is not about gotchas. We're here for Miami. And I think that's something we should all take very seriously. So it is now my pleasure to introduce this evening's moderator, Martin Vassallo from Axios Miami.
Thank you so much, Faith, and good evening. Welcome to our Miami, the People's Forum, a town hall event where you're going to hear from the candidates running for Miami-Dade tax collector. Like Faith said, my name is Martin Vassallo. I'm a reporter with Axios Miami, and I thank you all for joining us. Before we meet our candidates, a little background. For the first time since the 1950s, Miami-Dade voters will be electing a tax collector this November. Previously, the county mayor appointed a tax collector, but a 2018 constitutional amendment has made it an elected position once more, along with sheriff and supervisor of elections. A tax collector handles your property taxes, your car registration renewals, and issues licenses for things like boating and hunting. And beginning next year, the tax collector here in Dade County will also take over driver's license services currently provided by the state DMV. So it is a big role. And now we're going to meet our three candidates. First, Brian Calvo, a Hialeah City Council member and an attorney. Dariel Fernandez, a small business owner and member of Miami-Dade's Community Council Board, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. And finally, David Richardson, a former state representative, city commissioner, and certified public accountant. Some information on the upcoming election. Candidates Calvo and Fernandez will face each other in the Republican primary August 20th, and the winner will face Richardson in the November 5th general election. Our goal here tonight is to help voters get to know our candidates and their plans for this new elected position. We also encourage those in the audience to please submit your questions for our candidates. We're going to answer a select few of those later in the program. And we have a Q&A function that you can type in your question here. Before we get to the questions and the opening remarks, some ground rules. We want to create a space of belonging and inclusion, whether we agree or not. We urge our candidates to please be respectful to each other and refrain from personal attacks or interruptions. Each candidate will have equal opportunities to speak, 90 seconds for opening remarks, 90 seconds to answer questions, and if a rebuttal is needed, you'll have 30 seconds to respond. I want to remind our candidates we have a timer on the screen to keep track of how long you're speaking. It should be on the top of your screen there, very visible, and we may mute your microphone if you exceed that time limit. This is just to ensure that we get to every question possible. Now that that's done, let's begin with our opening remarks. You'll each have 90 seconds, like I said, to introduce yourselves, share why you're running for this position. Let's start with Councilman Calvo, and we'll go on to candidate Richardson. Councilman Calvo, you have 90 seconds whenever you're ready.
Well, good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to engage in this great discussion. So like you said, my name is Brian Calvo. I'm a council member currently in the city of Hialeah. And a little bit about me. So I was born and raised in the city of Hialeah. I'm a product of the public schools of the city. And I had the great honor and privilege of representing Hialeah when I was awarded a full ride scholarship to attend Harvard University, where I graduated with a degree in government. And I also took some coursework in economics and computer science as well. I also had the privilege of representing Hialeah and Miami-Dade County generally in the White House when I worked as a White House intern back in 2018. And then I decided to come back to Miami and enrolled in FIU Law School, where I became an attorney in the state of Florida. I've been a practicing attorney for about 2 years. And well, obviously I wasn't busy enough in law school, so I decided to thrust myself into public office. I ran in 2021 for the Hialeah City Council. In doing so, I became the youngest person ever elected to the Hialeah City Council. And over the past 2.5 years, I've really led the fight in the city of Hialeah when it comes to our property taxes. And we're seeing a constant increase, not only in Hialeah or in other cities, but at the county level. The county budget has ballooned almost $3 billion in the last 2 years that I've been in public office. And for me, it's quite shocking to see this. And I've been a staunch advocate against raising taxes because I see it from the perspective.
Thank you so much, candidate Calvo. Sorry we had to cut you off there, but the time was up. Now, candidate Richardson, you have 90 seconds for your opening.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Miami-Dade, for taking the opportunity to hear from the candidates. My name is David Richardson, and I first entered public life in 2012 when I won a seat in the Florida legislature representing Miami Beach, downtown Miami, Little Havana, and North Bay Village. And after that, served in the city of Miami Beach for a 4-year term and chaired the Finance Committee. And then decided rather than run for re-election, I wanted to pursue this opportunity. As has been stated, this is a new position. It hasn't been on the ballot in 65 years. 2 of the constitutional officers, or 2 of the positions that will be constitutional officers, have been elected, the clerk of the court and the property appraiser. But starting this year, they will be converted as well to constitutional officers. And I say that because I want everyone to be clear that these are independent government agencies. So one of my friends recently asked, who will you report to, the mayor or the commissioners? And the truth is that whoever gets elected will report only to the people of Miami-Dade County who elected them. So I started a business career many years ago. When I got out of college, I became a Pentagon auditor, served there for 5 years, doing some forensic work, then went on to have my own firm. And then I've been in public service for the last 12 years, and I look forward to the dialogue tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. We're going to turn to our questions now for this evening. Audience members, a reminder, our Q&A function is open. Please submit your questions, and we'll get to them later on in the program. We're going to go in reverse order, so I'm going to start with you now, candidate Richardson. Question number 1. Historically, a tax collector has been viewed as a bureaucratic role, but some of your campaigns have mentioned lowering taxes and fees or even addressing the housing crisis. How do you view the role of tax collector, and how can you get involved in broader county topics?
Yeah, well, I would say to that, those comments did not come from me, because I understand the work and I understand exactly what the job is. So I know that Mr. Calvo wrote an op-ed where he said the live local, he'd have the tax collector would have an opportunity to reduce taxes. That's not true. And in fact, 5 days later, the Miami Herald allowed him to amend his op-ed. So I understand the job. I think I have been saying for over a year, I filed in May. I understand that customer service needs to be improved. Right now, there is not a focus on customer service. There's one office in Miami-Dade County, and it's downtown. So if you need to do business with the tax collector, you drive downtown, you pay to park, and sometimes you wait an hour, hour and a half in line. When you look at the other 65 counties, because there are only 2 counties not electing, you'll notice that they have multiple offices, they have flexible hours, they offer appointment opportunities and things like that. So the work of the tax collector is collecting and properly distributing and overseeing, as you know, the auto registration. For me, customer service is number 1. There is no opportunity for the tax collector to cut taxes because that's the job of the local taxing authority and the property appraiser, which sets the millage. So the tax collector does not set the amount, and it's actually one of the most misunderstood things that I hear on the campaign trail. But I will run a very efficient office, and I will better customer service. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Calvo, you were mentioned, so I'll give you a 30-second rebuttal. Your name was mentioned previously.
Well, completely agree that the tax collector won't be able to, in effect, change the taxable rate on any particular property. But what I've campaigned on since the beginning is being a voice, a fiscal conservative voice countywide against tax increases. Because right now we don't have that. What we have is a Democratic administration. We have a slate of candidates that the Democratic mayor is pushing forward. And these candidates are going to largely treat these positions as bureaucratic positions. That's not the platform that I'm running on whatsoever. I think this person can be much broader than a bureaucratic position, because this person is going to have, in that position of being that middleman of collecting the property taxes and then issuing those tax.
Councilman Calvo, that was your 30-second rebuttal, but you were beginning to answer the original question, so I'll let you answer that in terms of what you view the role of tax collector, and how do you get involved in these broader topics?
Yeah. So what I was saying is because you're the middleman, you have an extremely powerful bully pulpit in our community on tax policy. In essence, you're going to be the foremost expert on tax policy in our county. And the same way that for example, our property appraiser opines on what the county should be doing in terms of a rollback rate. We've seen the current county budget present a no rollback rate, which is going to increase taxes once again in our community, which is already extremely strained. I think the tax collector also has that same bully pulpit, if not a greater bully pulpit, to be able to fight against those increases. Now, on the part of the fees, this office collects some $55 million in fees annually. And so there are great opportunities there to lower fees. Every time you get an auto tag renewal mailed to your house, if you want to pay, you're going to see an extra surcharge there. So working to lower those fees is an opportunity to put money back into people's pockets. So I think there's enormous possibilities from the bully pulpit perspective, but also from the perspective of being a conservative fiscal manager of this office and trying to reduce the office rather than having more bureaucracy, more employees, more money being misspent in our county, which is already straining our community to unprecedented levels.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go back to you now, Councilman Calvo. If elected, like we've discussed, you'll be taking over the DMV in Miami-Dade and handling the issuance of driver's licenses. What's your plan to improve services and perhaps the overall perception of the DMV, which is often criticized for long lines or for not having enough appointments?
Yeah, this is an extremely important point, right? So you have the taxable side where it's more about the bully pulpit and being an advocate. But then you have this DMV side where you'll have the managerial responsibility to fix what, and let me be crystal clear, it's a disaster right now what we have in Miami-Dade County with our DMVs. We have 9 offices to service almost 3 million people. The latest report that the county issued back in 2022 says that we have 600,000 drivers, and I want to repeat that, 600,000 drivers in our community right now that do not have an active license. And so we have folks in our community lining up at 5 a.m, trying to get a renewed license or trying to update some information. These are people that are your Uber drivers. They work for Amazon. Maybe they're truck drivers. They need their license in order to fund their business, fund their livelihood. And it's a complete disaster what we're seeing right now. And so what I would do as your next tax collector is we need to start implementing greater use of technology. The state invested millions of dollars already in something called the Florida ID app, which is an application where you can have a digital driver's license. And this is an extreme convenience for people because as you need to update information, you can do so in a digital fashion rather than having to make the line or try to wait for an appointment that will be months in the future. So incorporating that technology is going to be critical and part of my platform.
Thanks so much, Candidate Richardson. The question to you about improving the DMV.
Yeah, it's will definitely be the greatest challenge of whoever is elected in this position. As stated, there are 9 offices right now. They are vastly understaffed and underfunded. The state of Florida is running the offices in Miami-Dade and in Broward, and they are understaffed and underfunded because right now it's estimated they're losing about $10 million. With the state taking the full fees, which by the way are set by state law, not by the local tax collector. So what needs to happen is an orderly transition of those 9 offices. I have met with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Dave Kerner runs that. I served with him in the legislature. He understands that it would be my wish to transition those offices over an 18-month period. Also, there will be a challenge in the early months because whoever wins this will be inheriting a budget that is set by the county for at least 9 months because the fiscal year starts October 1st. So there needs to be significant improvement in customer service. There's approximately a 3-month wait right now to get certain appointments, or you stand in line. Some people are going to other counties, which is causing other counties to not want to do out-of-county transactions. There are opportunities where people are going to driving schools to get their exams. So there needs to be a great function on customer service. fast improvement in the motor vehicle. And I'm the guy to do it.
Thanks so much. We'll be going back to you for this third question. And Councilman Calvo did bring this up. You know, the recent figures say that there's over 600,000 Miami-Dade drivers with a suspended license, the majority due to debt, not paying off their tickets. This impacts, of course, lower income people who have to risk arrest to get to work. This is a clerk of the courts issue, but it also affects potentially DMV lines and using that bully pulpit or your elected office. You know, how might you advocate for a solution to this problem? The county has created a task force to try to help these drivers out with suspended licenses. What do you think about that, Candidate Richardson?
Thank you. And most of these people don't even know or may not know that their license is suspended. So, you know, the first thing you could do is the tax collector could notify the 600,000 people that they have an issue with their driver's license. But there needs to be an answer, because probably if everybody wants to get renewed at the same time, they're going to be having even longer lines. So there needs to be more staffing. There's inadequate staffing right now. There needs to be more staffing. There's also some talk about letting those private tag agencies, or 25 operating in the county, do some work, not all, related to driver's license, but I believe there would have to be a change in state law. And again, I served in Tallahassee, and I have great relationships with the current speaker and the current Senate president and the future in both chambers, to the extent that we need to make some changes in state law. I'm the best person to be able to advocate for that sort of activity. So, you know, the first thing is notifying the people and letting them know they've got a problem, and then having proper staffing. The reason there's not properly staffing right now is because the state's already losing 10 million. And so when the local tax collector takes that over, that loss is going to come to the local tax collector. And the way it works is you make money on the property tax collection side, and you have to use some of that money to properly finance the driver's license, because the fee structure set by the state is not adequate to cover the cost to run an office.
Thanks so much. Councilman Calvo, do you think this amount of residents with suspended licenses is leading to DMV strain? And what are some things you may want to advocate for to sort of nip this in the bud?
Look, absolutely, it's playing a part in the strain. And I'll tell you, it affects all of us. Even if you're not one of the 600,000 drivers, if you get into a car accident with one of these folks, the likelihood that they have insurance is probably not too high, because if their license is suspended, why would they have it? And so as an attorney, I can tell you, I've seen many cases where you have an accident in our community. Unfortunately, the person doesn't have insurance, and it's an extreme burden now on the person that was not at fault for that accident. It affects all of us also in your car insurance rates. Miami-Dade County pays some of the highest rates in the state of Florida. And so absolutely, the key word here is we're not being aggressive enough, right? Everybody's going to have the same idea. Everybody's going to say, well, I'm going to try to reduce the number of drivers. And I think everybody's well-intentioned in saying that. The situation is the county created a task force to solve this problem. That task force has been around for about 2 years, and the problem persists. And so we need a much, much, much more aggressive attitude towards this problem. And I think one of the strategies that should be used is proactive outreach, right? So we have these 9 locations. Clearly, the 9 locations are insufficient. Totally agree that there's lack of proper staffing at many of these locations, lack of training. One of the things you can do is open this up to some of the tag agencies, 25 locations. So right there, you would be looking at 34 potential locations. But then on top of all of that, you need to have mobile office hours. You need to be reaching people in their communities, in their senior buildings, et cetera.
Thank you so much. And we're going right back to you, Councilman. This is a newly elected office for Miami-Dade, but counties across Florida elect their tax collectors. Is there a role model or any best practices that you want to follow that maybe other counties in Florida have taken the lead on?
Yeah, so yes, you're right. There are other counties that have tax collectors. The most recent transition occurred in Volusia County 2 years ago. But don't be mistaken. This is Miami-Dade County. This is the largest county in Florida. The transition here is not going to be like what they did in Volusia or some of these other counties. This is going to be dramatically different and dramatically more challenging for a host of reasons. One of those reasons is we still don't know who's going to be elected for Miami-Dade County tax collector. That person would presumably know in November, but then they would have a very short 60-day period before they swear in to try to work on a transition. And it might look very different if you have somebody that's with the same sort of goals and principles that the county mayor has, Mayor Cava. That transition might be a lot quicker and easier. I would argue that the transition under myself as a prospective tax collector is how do we grow this office and do the services that we need to provide, but how do we do so without ballooning this office, without adding hundreds of more employees and increasing costs and having this office explode into more bureaucracy, more red tape. We need to have solutions for folks. We don't need to cause more headaches for folks. And so I think the transition is going to be quite a challenge. And I think I'm very prepared in the sense that I have that legal background, which is going to inform me as far as state statutes go, but also the experience as a sitting council member for one of the second largest city in Miami-Dade County, a $420 million budget that we approve.
Thank you so much. The question to you, candidate Richardson, are there role models, best practices, or maybe pain points that other county tax collectors have told you or that you've learned through your campaign?
Yeah, and I certainly want to learn from some of the electeds. There are 65 electeds right now, only 2 that are not elected. Actually, I've been making a tour. In fact, I'm in Tallahassee right now. Yesterday, had a meeting with the tax collector here, Ms. Malloy, who's been the elected tax collector for 24 years. And I'm making the rounds to meet with other tax collectors so I can listen to them and learn some from them, some of their best practices and their challenges. Volusia County, as was mentioned, actually transitioned 3.5 years ago, not 2 years ago. And if you look at some of the offices that were the state was running there on the driver's license side, they were totally inadequate. They've just recently opened a brand new facility. So some of the offices that we have in Miami-Dade, there are 9 offices right now. The state does not want to turn over one of them because it's on state property. They want to keep that. There'll be 8 offices. Some of those 8 offices are not even adequate for people to walk into, honestly, and there's security issues. So some of those offices are going to have to be closed. New offices will be opened, and I'm up for that challenge and prepared to do that. Security has been a concern in some of those offices. There's not enough security. That needs to be improved as well. So I know that I'm the guy that can take on that challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. The biggest responsibility will be managing the fiscal because of the significant losses right now and figuring out how you're going to run a successful operation.
Thank you so much. You've mentioned, both of you have mentioned the 9 DMV locations, but the tax collector's office, correct me if I'm wrong, only has the 1 location. Are there any plans, candidate Richardson, to expand office hours or open satellite offices for more customers to use these services for the tax collector?
Yes, absolutely. And that will have to be done over a period of time. The office downtown probably doesn't need to be as large as it is now, and there needs to be more regional. But one thing that makes us unique in Miami-Dade County is we have these 25 private tag agencies. Was mentioned that they could start doing some of the driver's license work. I don't believe under current state law that they're allowed to do that. There would have to be changes in state law. And we need to look at areas that are not being served. So for example, in Miami Beach and South Beach, years ago, there was a private tag agency. Rents went up. They couldn't afford to stay there anymore. So those would be areas where an official tax office might be ripe for opening because a private agency may not be interested because of the cost of the rent and so forth. So my view is there needs to be something more north, south, east, and west so that we're better serving. Also, I plan to expand mobile opportunities. Right now, the mobiles are running by the state of Florida, FLO, Florida License on Wheels. I've already met with Mr. Kerner again at DMV. He's allowing a pilot program in Escambia County where the tax collector is running that independently. And I've told him that if elected, I intend to come and ask him if I too can run a pilot program where I will be able to better manage the mobile opportunities in Miami-Dade County. So I'm very much looking forward to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Calvo. The tax collector's office has these limited hours and they're only open in one location. What say you about opening mobile offices and trying to expand these services?
Look, absolutely. It's totally inadequate to just have one location in downtown. And obviously, if you're living down south in Homestead or out west, like I am in the city of Hialeah, it'll take you over an hour easily, much less during rush hour. So the beauty of it is we already have satellite government locations, right? And if you look at it, we have North Dade Government Center, we have South Dade Government Center. There's plans right now to build a West Dade Government Center. Plus, we have all the municipalities in Dade County, which have their own city halls. We have our libraries, great library system here in Miami-Dade County, and we also have our courthouses. So there's ample opportunities. Now, the curious thing is that a lot of people actually elect to make their payments either via mail or they just do it online. I know that that's something that a lot of people like to do, and it's just more convenient. And so again, it's that tension between wanting to expand and wanting to bring the service to your local neighborhoods, which is something that I would advocate, though, but doing so in a conservative fashion, where again, now you're not buying all this new real estate and you're creating all these new buildings that are unnecessary. I think if COVID taught us one thing is that we're moving towards this digital world. I think where we can sort of find the balance is when you have those seniors with the mobile office, you're able to send that, whether it's a bus, an RV, or whatever it is, to their building where they currently reside. And there you're able to provide a very specific service to people, whether they're handicapped or what have you.
Thank you so much. And going back to you, Councilman, for this next question, we've heard about the private auto tag agencies around Miami-Dade County that the tax collector's office authorizes. They provide convenience, right? But they also charge extra fees. What do you think, Councilman, about these private auto tag agencies? Do you want to let them keep expanding, take a look at the fees that they're charging, or try to shrink them down and replace them with proper government offices?
Yeah, so I think they serve a very vital role, and it's something unique that we have here in Miami-Dade County. One of the issues is if you started adding more of these offices, unfortunately, most people, like I just said in the earlier answer, are moving towards the online. So the bulk of the customers actually in these private tag agencies come from dealerships, interestingly enough. And so they provide a very specific service. Quite frankly, they take a big load off the tax collector's office because how many employees are you going to have to hire if you shut down these private tag agencies down? And by the way, the thing that I think the tax collector is going to have to be doing is provide more training to these folks, because these are a frontline sort of people might not mistake whether they're private versus public. They provide that frontline service to the customer when they have questions and what have you. They are, in essence, our satellite offices right now. And so I think the role a tax collector is going to have is to better train some of the individuals in these offices, their employees, right? They have their turnover and what have you. And I don't think that we should be increasing the number of offices. I would be against that. But to the extent that they are now, I think they serve a vital role in our community. I wouldn't take them out just to substitute that for more government inefficiency. Thank
you. Candidate Richardson, what say you on the private auto tag centers?
Thank you. So you're right. In Miami-Dade County, it's somewhat unique, and they're about 25, and no other county is using. Some counties will just use them for auto dealers or fleet management. I actually don't dislike. In fact, I like the model because they provide a private answer to serving customers in very different locales. I do think, in addition to improving the customer service, there needs to be more oversight. And maybe that ties into the training that Mr. Calvo mentioned. There is not enough oversight of these offices right now. And you may remember some weeks back, 4 or 5 weeks back, a supervisor at one of the locations was arrested for processing a false title, so on a stolen vehicle. So there are only 2 oversight officers in the current tax collector's office. There's not enough oversight of the transactions they're doing. There were all sorts of red flags on this particular transaction that should have alerted people that there was a problem, but it wasn't the tax collector's office that identified the problem. It was a police department that discovered it and reported it to the tax collector and other authorities. So there needs to be more oversight. Also, I want to make sure that if they're operating, they're giving the best customer service, just like the tax collector's office would provide.
Thank you so much. In my research for this, I learned that a tax collector's participation as an intake location for concealed weapon or gun license applications is voluntary, and not every tax collector has to do it. Candidate Richardson, if elected, would you accept firearm applications at the tax collector's office?
I would. If under state law, the tax collector is authorized to provide customer service to the residents of their county, then it is not up to me to decide whether or not I think that's appropriate or not. I'll provide the service as permitted under state law.
Thank you. Councilman Calvo, same question.
Absolutely, I would. And, I'll add, obviously, with the changes to state law, I think the number of applications dramatically has decreased. But they also provide the security guard license, right? The equivalent of that. And so, again, I mean, it's a function that is required under state law to go through these processes. The tax collector is the administrator of these things. And so, absolutely, they should continue as they are currently.
Thank you. And next question back to you, Councilman Calvo. You mentioned that the tax collector collects a lot of fees. I think most or all of the revenue that the tax collector has is made up of fees. Do you plan to lower fees? I know if you pay by credit card, you get charged a fee, and there may be other fees. And if you do lower fees, how would that impact the budget?
Yeah, so this office, out of all the offices, is in the best financial position possible. Right now, they take in some $55 million, like I was saying earlier, but they only expend some $38 million. And like was said earlier, yeah, you're going to have to take in the driver's license offices. I don't believe the number's 10. I believe the number's $12 million that these offices take in terms of overhead. But you're still going to have a surplus. From day one, the elected tax collector will have a surplus. Now, you can actually increase fees and balloon the budget of this office all the way up to close to $200 million, because you can add another fee to the driver's license transaction that is a sort of local option add-on by the tax collector. You can withhold taxes that are collected, a certain percentage. And so if you wanted to, you can balloon this office from what it is now, $55 million, a net surplus, to a $200 million office. I would be totally against that. And I would follow the example that we have in certain counties here in the state of Florida, where the tax collector actually refunds certain amounts of money at the end of the year, because they manage this office not as a government entity, but they manage it almost like a small business. Well, Miami-Dade, I guess it wouldn't be very small. It'd be quite a large business, just in the sheer volume of transactions. But that's how you have to manage this office, right? And you have to return as much money possible back to the residents. Yes, all doing that while providing the services.
Thank you so much. Candidate Richardson, dealing with that deficit you mentioned, after taking in the DMV offices, do you have any plans or intentions to lower fees? And if so, how would that impact the budget?
So right now, the office is taking in anywhere from 40 to 45 million a year. They're running for around $30 million. So they've been providing back about $15 million of surplus to the county in recent years. That does not include the driver's license. So if driver's license were included with that, they would have to absorb that loss of 10 or $12 million. But it actually will be even greater than that, because right now, the state of Florida is taking 100% of the revenues from the office, but once the tax collector takes over, they'll have to share that revenue stream. So the losses are going to be even greater. So on year one, in January 9th of 25, when the tax collector is sworn in, they're going to inherit a budget that has been passed by the county. And in fact, the current budget was just released about a week ago. I hope we get a chance to talk about that and some of my concerns. So if the Department of Motor Vehicles wanted to insist that the tax collector take the keys on day one, the finances are not there to even pay for those losses. You're going to need to take the first offices after the beginning of the fiscal year when the tax collector can properly budget for those losses on the motor vehicle. I have expressed that to DMV and told them, look, if I'm elected, I really don't want to take the first office until October 1st because there will not be funding to absorb the loss. But I understand these numbers and I'm ready for the challenge.
Thank you so much. I want to remind the audience to please submit your questions. We have a good number of questions we're going to get to in a couple minutes. I have another question here for you, candidate Richardson. We've been talking about the issues and the challenges facing this office and the DMV. What's something maybe that the tax collector's office is doing well that you don't want to change?
I think that there is a professional staff. I've met with them. I know that they've offered that opportunity to all the candidates. I had a good meeting with them last year. I think there's a very professional staff. I met some of the senior people. I think they're doing a good job. I think also that they're doing a very good job of addressing the need of the transition and recognizing the challenges that will be there. I look forward to working with everyone. You know, most people assume that everybody in the tax collector's office will automatically transition to the new constitutional officer. That's not required by law. So the tax collector could hire. I do intend to hire, I hope, everybody that's there and everyone who's doing their job will have a job. Obviously, I need experienced people that understand the issues and have been working. So I'm very proud of what I've heard about the professional staff, and I look forward to taking the work that's been done and enhancing upon that, improving customer service. The staff that's there right now doesn't have control over that. What needs to happen is we need to offer appointments. A lot of the tax collectors around the state offered appointments during the pandemic. It's worked extremely well. And I have been saying for well over a year that I will provide appointment opportunities. I will expand hours. I will expand mobile units. So all of those things are within the power and control of the elected tax collector. But I'm proud of from what I've seen of the.
Thank you, Councilman Calvo. The question to you about the people and the policies maybe in place currently at the tax collector's office that you think are working well and that maybe you want to expand or keep in place?
Oh, look, I also had the same experience where I was able to tour the current tax collector's office and speak to some of the folks that work there. And I would agree, they're highly professionals. I think, you know, to be specific, I think they do a good job at retention. And that's something that government generally has trouble with, right? Competing with a private market. And so a lot of the folks there are folks that have that 20-year experience in the office and you know, are able to sort of bring some of that knowledge to the table. And I think that's fantastic and definitely something that I would tap into as the next tax collector. Now, I'll look at it from a different perspective, and that sometimes that makes it a little difficult for change, right? And government is just so slow at changing things. And I think what our community wants right now, what our community is eager for, is for change, right? You have folks that are leaving Miami-Dade County in record numbers because of the unaffordability of this county. And that impacts the future of what this office is going to look like. And so we need to do better. We need to do better across the board. This is no stab at the folks that work there. I think they're very qualified professionals, but it's doing things a little bit more aggressively, like I was saying earlier, with these appointments, with fixing the issues with the driver's licenses, and also trying to making sure that every cent that this dollar collects is used in an equitable fashion, that is used correctly, and that it's not going to waste with government inefficiencies.
Thank you so much. Let's get into some audience questions. Back to you, Councilman Calvo. We have an anonymous question. How does your lived experience and professional expertise on finance and government budgeting best prepare you for this role?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So I've been a council member in the city of Hialeah, the second largest city in Miami-Dade County. Every single year that I've been a council member, we've had to look through and pour through a $420 million budget. And from there, you're looking at everything from police and fire to water and sewer. Hialeah is a self-sustaining city. And so bringing that experience to this office, which has a dramatically smaller budget, by the way, right? At $55 million now, I'm very well equipped to take on the role. But now I also have the academic experience, which is having studied economics at Harvard, having the federal experience of having worked in the White House, and then adding all that to that pot of sauce, the fact that I am an attorney. And right now, this office, through the transition, will lose the representation that it currently has from the county attorney's office, and they're going to be out on their own for a bit until they're able to hire in-house counsel or contract it out. So having that attorney experience, I think, is going to be vital to ensuring a proper transition and ensuring that we're in compliance with all state statutes.
Thank you so much, candidate Richardson. How does your lived experience and professional expertise in finance and government budgeting best prepare you for this role?
Well, the best news is that my experience is not limited. So I have two undergraduate degrees, including a degree in accounting. I've been a licensed CPA in the state of Florida for 39 years. I was heavily involved in the budget as a state legislator and as a city council person and commissioner in the city of Miami Beach. I was asked by the mayor to chair the finance committee because of my vast experience. That budget is about $930 million a year and is very complicated. So I have the experience. I also have the experience in Tallahassee, so that I'm going to be able to come to Tallahassee and talk to legislators one-on-one about any needs that need to be changed in state law. So I am very well equipped with my financial background. I understand budgets. The budget for this office was just released by the mayor's office the other day, and I've already combed through every line item under that budget to understand it. And also I'm going to be voicing a few changes that I think need to be made to the budget, and I hope the commissioners on the council will listen to that, because again, we're going to have to inherit, whoever gets elected is going to inherit the county's budget for 9 months until September 30th of 25.
Thank you so much. Piggybacking off that, we actually have another audience question here asking specifically candidate Richardson, both of you, what are your concerns with the proposed county budget for the tax collector's office?
So it's a great question. It was just released. So anyone who's looked at it knows that there's a headcount a little over 200, and they're proposing to take back 22 positions. So that is in the area of local business tax receipts and the tourism, the convention. So they're looking to move that back to the county, which under state law, they can properly do that. That portion is generating about $9 million of revenue right now, and nets out about $5 million, probably a profit, as I'm estimating, after all those expenses are paid. So that $5 million could be used to offset any losses, especially if the state of Florida steps up and says, we want you to take over the driver's license on day one. Now, one of the things they have done is they've included a reserve of almost $4 million in the budget for this 1 year period, this transition year, and I understand there may be some additional transition dollars available. So a lot of that's going to really depend on if I'm successful, if elected in advocating for a transition of the first office, the DMV, on October 1st. If the state wants to push it sooner, then it's going to be quite difficult, because there is not going to be enough money to assume the losses related to the driver's license. So that's my biggest concern with the budget.
Thank you so much, Councilman Calvo. As the county's transitioning into these new elected offices, what are your concerns with the proposed county budget for the tax collector's office?
Well, a couple points, and let me start off by saying the proposed budget is a slap in the face. I mean, just plain and simple, it's approximately $13 billion. Again, there is no rollback rate in this county budget. We're expecting that folks go into their pocket once more for the third or fourth consecutive time and pull out more money to fund an ever increasing county budget that is quite frankly not providing additional services to our community. We don't have metro rail lines jumping up, constructions everywhere. We don't have additional bus services. Actually, the bus program has gotten worse for many of our seniors in our community. But specifically with the tax collector's office, the county is smart. They're trying to shackle the tax collector down the same way that they've tried to sort of limit whoever wins in the sheriff's office. They don't want these offices to be independent, but that's what the voters voted for back in 2018 when they passed the constitutional amendment. The whole point is that these offices have to be independent from the county. This office in particular, because it generates revenue, is in a position, the best position, to be independent from the county. But this budget is a slap in the face because it's just going to prevent whoever wins from having to be basically 9-10 months without being able to do any of the policy changes that they should be doing as an independent office, which is what the voters elected them to do.
Thanks so much. We have time for one more audience question. This one is from Ibis Valdez, the president of the League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade, and it's to you, Councilman Calvo. Are there any outreach or educational programs you would propose to help taxpayers better understand their obligations and rights as it relates to the tax collector's office?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ibis. Thank you for the question. Listen, yes, this is going to be vital. Community education is at the forefront of good local government. The more people are informed, the more people can understand these issues, right? It's one thing for me and candidate Richardson to be talking about this at a high level. The community needs to understand this office. Right now, it's very difficult to do because whilst we're campaigning for the office, we're also doing an educational campaign. But I think being elected, that would be one of the first priorities, is having community workshops, having those meetings in, whether it's in a church, in a library, community center, in the different municipalities, so people can understand how this office works, how their tax dollars are managed and collected, and more importantly, how these other roles, right? We've talked about DMVs and tag agencies. There's a list of like 30 other things that this office does. When you talk about hunting and fishing licenses, when you talk about, which by the way is a huge environmental concern in our community, how all of these little things that this office does play such a major role in our community. And so I would absolutely want to do a lot of community engagement, a lot of outreach, and get more participation, because a society is only as good as the civic participation that it has. And right now, if you go down the street and you say, I'm ready for tax collector, as I do every day when I knock on doors, people look at you funny and they're like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to pay more taxes. And I agree with you, but we need the right person for the job.
Thank you so much. Candidate Richardson, Ibis's question to you about, can you outline any outreach or educational programs you would propose to help residents understand their obligations, their rights, how they fit in this tax collector system?
Yeah, so the first thing I would do is I'm committed and promise that I will have a dedicated community outreach team that will assist, in addition to myself, being in the community. So because this has been an appointed position for so many years, there hasn't really been any community outreach. It's been people realizing they have an issue and coming to the tax collector's office rather than going to them where they live. So there needs to be more community outreach. The other thing you'll see with elected tax collectors around the state is that most of them have some sort of written guide that they provide of all the services and how they can use that. If you also look at the website of many of the elected officials, they are quite good and are very much more interactive than the one of a non-elected tax collector. So there needs to be that kind of outreach. There needs to be, even the simple thing of when you get a mailing, when you get your tax bill in the mail, most elected tax collectors are providing information along that in addition to the bill, whereas what Miami-Dade has been sending out is very limited. So there are all sorts of opportunities to improve customer service by educating, holding forums, and I look forward to working on that.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to all of the audience members who submitted questions. Later on, you're going to hear how to get in touch with our candidates here, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those. As we approach the end of our forum, we want to give each candidate an opportunity to provide closing remarks. We'll start with you, Councilman Calvo. You'll have 90 seconds to share any final thoughts with our audience and tell them how to learn more about you or get in touch.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the questions. And I think this is the first, at least, experience that I've had where we have substantive questions on the tax collector's office. So thank you much for your team for putting this all together. Listen, I think, first of all, I have to get through a primary, right? I'll be on the ballot in August 20th. You can only vote for me if you're a registered Republican. I think, God willing, we're going to get through that primary and be on the ballot in November. And I think you have a very stark choice. And that's great in our democracy to be able to have a choice. And so I think it's two very wildly different perspectives of how this office is going to look like. I'll talk about my perspective. I am a young, eager, hungry individual who has sort of fought in Hialeah for the people of low income in our community, for our seniors, for lower taxes, for increased affordability, for increased transparency in government. I am have the educational background. Now I have the practical experience, and I'm eager to come into this office and to make change. And that's what our community wants. We want change in our community. We want to lower the cost of living in this county, which is ballooning. And you're going to have that with Brian Calvo as the next tax collector in Miami-Dade County. And I would say that, my youth, while it's not about experience, but my youth is about change, about eagerness to serve, and to be a public servant for this community. Thank you.
Thanks so much, candidate Richardson. Your 90-second closing remarks.
And thank you. And thank you to the community for listening. And thanks to the Miami Foundation for hosting this. It is the first time we've been asked substantive questions. So it's nice to get to the point. I'm not as young as Mr. Calvo. I'm reminded of Mr. Reagan, President Reagan, years ago saying that he would not use his opponent's youth and inexperience for political gain. So, Brian, I won't do that with you. I have 39 years experience as a licensed CPA. I ran a very successful consulting firm. I have 3 degrees, including in finance. I have extensive experience in finance. I understand budget. Miami Beach calls me the budget guy. I may be a Democrat, but I am certainly fiscally responsible. At our beach, we didn't vote for a tax increase there. So when I was chair of the finance, we kept the millage rate flat. There was no increase in the millage rate. So I know how to do this job. I've been campaigning now for well over a year. I was unopposed for almost a year before opposition decided to get in. I have more than 50 elected officials who have endorsed me and hundreds of community leaders who understand that I have the right experience for this job. I know how to do the job, but I'm excited mostly about the opportunity to create a new government agency and to set it up and get it done right. So more about me is at david.vote. You can find everything about me at david.vote. Or you can email me at david@davidreforma.com. Thank you so much to the community for participating tonight.
Thank you so much, candidates. And thank you to our audience for tuning in, being engaged, and submitting your questions. Just a reminder, the Republican primary election between Brian Calvo and Dariel Fernandez, that's August 20th. And the general election, when you're seeing David Richardson on your ballot, is going to be November 5th. So the winner of the Republican primary will head to the November election against candidate Richardson. For that primary, early voting begins August 5th, and the deadline to request a vote by mail ballot is August 8th. So please mark that down. And for the general in November, which is open to all voters, the deadline to register is October 7th, and you have until October 24th, to request a mail ballot. Thank you again for joining us this evening. You're all going to receive a survey via email. Please complete it and give us your honest feedback on how tonight went. And as always, stay informed, stay engaged, and have a great evening. For more information, you can visit votemiami.org. and tune in to our last candidate forum tomorrow night for County Commission District 11. And last thing, to the audience members whose questions went unanswered, our team was able to write those down, and we'll be sending it to the candidates so they are aware of some of these concerns and questions. But thank you so much, and have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.